Hello there. My name is Jessica McNair, and welcome to Tales of the Force. This is a place for fans to tell their Star Wars stories, and this is our first episode. I thought for the first one that I would share a part of my Star Wars story and kind of give you an overview of what to expect on this podcast. And don't forget, this is my personal story, and just like I'm not going to diminish or judge, or really, I'm not going to have any opinions on the guest's story. It's their personal story. I ask that you would do the same for me. Any views or thoughts or opinions I express are obviously my own. And I also kind of want to cover comments. So, obviously, people can review shows and they can say whatever they want, and that is totally fine. For my show and my podcast and on social media, I am asking that people keep their comments to people's stories respectful. Um, there might be people that come on that have a different life story than you. And you know what? That's okay. If it doesn't speak to you, or it's not something that you can identify with, that's all right. You don't have to listen to the episode. You don't have to comment. You don't have to really do anything. You can just keep scrolling and move on. I hope, however, that you will enjoy these stories of the people that are going to come on and share them, because from what I've seen so far, they are pretty incredible. And I know incredible is definitely very subjective, just like art, just like watching these movies and these shows. Our opinions are very subjective. We all have different opinions, and that comes from our life experiences, our personal biases that we might have against different things. And I kind of hope that coming together and listening to these stories, it might help us kind of maybe see that we don't have as many differences as we might think. So, going back to comments, I would like for everyone to keep those respectful and to not post any hateful comments. I am going to monitor those, just letting everyone know kind of ahead of time. And if something seems really hateful or inappropriate towards a guest, I will either comment back or kind of see if someone will delete that. Or if it comes to it, I'm going to delete those comments, because I want this to be a safe place for people. And I definitely believe in setting healthy and good boundaries, and this is one of them. So I am, just like in Star Wars, I do believe that people can change, and, redemption is a huge theme. So I'm not just going to be on there blocking people. That's not what I'm hoping for. I'm not hoping for any of this, honestly, but I know it comes with the territory. And so I'll give people, 3 chances to kind of see what we're about, what I want our community to be. And if you keep violating what I've asked for people to do, then I will block people from the different platforms. Okay, so that not so fun part out of the way. I also want to give a general reminder that even though Star Wars is a story that is filled with hopeful themes, it also touches on some darker things like war, death, loss, slavery and oppression, trauma, mental health issues, personal injury, abandonment, pregnancy and childbirth, and among other things. And I just want to let people know that we will be talking about these things. And in some of the stories, I might have some trigger warnings based off of the guests' personal stories, just to give you guys, the listeners, the opportunity to see if this is a story that's for you or not to listen to. I want you all to be careful and take care of yourself. And so if you think these are something that are going to be triggering for you or offend you in some way, then it might not be likely or a good idea for you to listen to the story. I'm not saying all of them are going to be these intensely heavy stories, but I just know that some of them will be. And so we always want you, obviously, to take care of yourself and reach out to someone that you trust if something does bring up something for you in listening to this show or podcast. For myself personally, in this episode, I haven't really written out exactly everything I'm going to say. I want this to be a very genuine and authentic and real conversation with people. And for me right now, sharing my personal story. But just a heads up, I do have some mental health struggles that will come up in this episode. I will probably talk a little bit personally about why I was inspired to do this. And part of that does have to do with loss and personal loss and grief um, of a pet, actually, and some struggles that I've been on with my mental health. And also, I might touch a little bit on my spiritual journey. I know that that is not for everyone, and that is totally okay. But this is my personal story, and I do want to share it authentically with you guys. So let's get into it. So I grew up loving Star Wars. I don't really remember a time that I didn't know about the Star Wars franchise. My parents were in their 20s when A New Hope came out. So they saw all three of them in theaters, and I just kind of grew up. We had the VHSs of them. I actually have them. It is the special editions that came out, I think, in like the 90s before the prequels came out. I was 10 when The Phantom Menace came out, and I saw the other two in my teens. So it was definitely really exciting to go from growing up watching these stories at home. You know, we didn't have the huge flat screen TVs that we have now. It was definitely a lot more expensive to have surround sounds and things like that. So not everybody had those in their houses. So I grew up watching Star Wars on just like one of those old box TVs. And so getting to go and see them in theaters as a kid when the prequels came out was absolutely incredible. I do remember seeing the rolling, entry for the first time. And it's just a feeling like no other. I think all of us, when we go to the theaters and we see Star Wars, even if it's like a replay of a movie or something like that opening crawl is just something else. I don't know what it does to us, but it just does something. And getting to see that for the first time in theaters was just so incredible for me. And then obviously seeing the other ones was great too. Now, I didn't really get a lot of the hate that they got. I am a pretty easygoing person, and I like a lot of things, and I'm not overly critical and that sort of thing. And while I do understand the criticisms of the prequels and any of the other movies, it wasn't something that was really big for me to talk about. So I kind of stayed out of that. I always loved them, and I just enjoyed them for what they were. And I don't think having opinions on the movies or disliking the movies or some of the movies or, that sort of thing, I don't think there's anything wrong with that by any means. We all should be able to express our opinions in a healthy and respectful way. I keep saying that, but I don't know how else to say it. Um, I After that, I guess in like high school, I guess there were certain times that I wasn't maybe as involved with Star Wars as I am like now or when I was a kid and I loved watching them. Um, I was diagnosed later in life a few years ago with ADHD. I've gone on a very long mental health journey since I was about 18. I struggled with depression and anxiety and different things like that. Um, and I had a really hard time in college, actually. I even had some suicidal ideation and different things like that. And so, um, there's been times in the past, like in high school, I actually lost my grandparents at a young age. I was 14, and that was devastating for me. And so it was very unexpected. And I think with loss and different things like that, I think the deeper, heavier parts of the stories became more real to me. And that helped also solidify my love for them because I saw these characters going through these incredibly hard things that I haven't gone through. I have never fought in a war. I've never been a soldier. I've never had to deal with any of those things. But to see them go through that and be able to still be hopeful, to be able to still fight for the light and to do the right thing was very, very inspiring during those times, even if I wasn't really outwardly talking about Star Wars. During that period of my life, I was really trying to fit in. I am a very insecure person, and I think anyone in their teenage years and early adult years is definitely going through a lot of self realization and trying to figure out where they fit in and different things like that. And so I definitely, it wasn't cool to like Star Wars, and not that I tried to be cool. I mean, I was very different than a lot of people that I grew up with, but so I didn't always try to like fit in a mold or fit a box, but I think Star Wars and kind of the nerdiness of it, I guess, was pushing it a little over the edge. And so I kind of kept that to myself a little bit. Like Lord of the Rings came out when I was in high school, and that was a big deal. And I did go to, that was the first opening night movie experience, like in the theaters where everyone dresses up. And my mom is an amazing seamstress, and she made me a whole costume, and it was great. But I didn't really show that outward love as much during that time for Star Wars, except with a few friends that I saw the movies in my early teens with. They knew that I loved it. So moving on, went into my 20s. I got married young. It'll be 15 years this year, which is actually, it is incredible. Not trying to brag, but it is not an easy thing. And it's work, and it's wonderful, but it is work. And I hate it when people try to make relationships seem like it's just rainbows and butterflies, because it isn't always that way. But we got married really young, and my husband enjoys watching Star Wars with me, but like I'm the Star Wars person in the relationship, which is kind of different. So my Star Wars girlies out there, like, I see you, I get you, like I'm here. We can find our fellow nerdy girlfriends, I guess. I don't know. Um so I also went through a hard time with my mental health in my early 20s. It is, guys, if you've never struggled with your mental health, let me explain something for you. There is now blood tests or DNA tests. Yeah, genetic testing. That's the right word. There's now genetic testing to help you find the right medicine. But what it was like for me, and what it is still like for people, because that isn't always financially doable for people, depending on what company and doctors and that sort of thing. But it is literally a guessing game. It is insane to me that at this point, with science and how it's progressed, how much of a guessing game it is to help someone find a medication that helps them if they do choose to go down the path of taking medication, and that also is not for everyone. I'm a huge believer in people finding what works for them. So I'm not saying this to try to push my journey and what helped me on anyone else. And this is also not me giving any health advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. This is just me sharing my story. So you take medication and the doctor will say, like, here's some medication to try. We'll see how it works. It takes 4 to 6 weeks, normally on average, for that to start working. Once it starts working or not working, then it's either, is the dose correct? Do you have to up it? Do we need to change you to something else? So let's say it doesn't work, right? You have to slowly get off of that medication most of the time. So like you're all over the place, or it feels that way sometimes. It's really a struggle. And then they give you another one, and then that takes again another 4 to 6 weeks or so for that to start working. And if you do like natural vitamins and herbs and different things like that, it can take even longer. And so it's a process. And so I say that too. If you know someone in your life that's going through something with their mental health, give them grace, because it is a very hard time to go through. Now, there is genetic testing that you can take that will tell you, like, with, different biomarkers and different things, like what is better for your body versus other things. And that helps take some of that guessing out. So I went through that a lot in my early 20s, and it was a very hard time in my life. Through that, my husband and I got our first dog together, Max. It was kind of before we knew better about researching, like, I know there's a lot of opinions on adopting, and I think you should obviously adopt a dog if you can, and there's so many dogs that need to be adopted, but I'm not going to say, like, don't also, if you need to get a certain breed, like, do your research, find an ethical, good breeder. And I know some people are going to come for me for saying that. It is what it is, my personal opinion. We did not know these things, but thankfully, I think he came from a good place. Anyway, he was a Yorkie. I always wanted one. My aunt had one growing up. I loved her. I always wanted one. And it was our 2-year wedding present, was Max. And for those of you who don't have dogs or pets of any kind and have had this kind of connection, I don't think you can understand this, and that's totally okay. But for those that do, you will understand this. There are some animals that come into your life that it's like another level of connection. And I'll try not to cry because I still miss him very much. When I tell you this dog was like my soulmate and my best friend, and I know that sounds silly, he was. I called him my little Wookiee walk because he was like a little Wookiee Ewok combined. He was something special. He was there for me through my hardest times when he would finally crying on the floor because my depression was so bad and I didn't know what to do. He would come up to me, He would come up to me and he would lick my tears off of my face, and he would help me remember when to wake up and take my medication. Like, this dog was like, I don't know, like, it was just who he was. We had such an amazing bond. Not to be sad, but one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because he passed away last year. It'll be a year in June. And again, some of you are like, why is this girl on this podcast, or if you're watching this on YouTube, crying about her dog? And again, if you don't get it, you don't get it. It's fine. He helped me get through such a hard time in my life. And I was diagnosed about a year before he passed with ADHD. Now, getting that diagnosis, I've had some people ask me, and I'm going to come back to Star Wars. I promise this is not me trying to give you my sad life story. My life story is not sad, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I have a reason for telling you these things. I promise. So anyway, I got that diagnosis. It was like a light bulb went off for me. I was able to see the reasons why I had depression and anxiety. It stemmed from this. Because when you are neurotypical, which ADHD falls under, and so does people within the autism spectrum, and I think there's other diagnoses as well. I don't want to leave any of them out, but those two are definitely under the umbrella of being neurodivergent. It means that your brain processes things and works differently than a neurotypical brain. And all of this has to do with your neurotransmitters. I'm not a scientist, but with struggling this for a long time, I have done a lot of research for myself to understand how my brain works. And so when someone takes like an antidepressant or different things like that, it is to help with a neurotransmitter, different things that, their body is not producing a chemical like serotonin or different things like that. With ADHD, it's normally dopamine. And so when your brain is not creating this, it is not going to function the same way other people who have these neurotransmitters and things in their brain working, firing correctly. You're going to struggle with different things. So like I struggle with time blindness. I am horrible with time. I have been since I was little. I'm not very good with keeping myself on task or understanding literally how long an hour takes and different things like that. I am normally always the late person to something, running behind constantly. Those are some things from that time blindness can affect. I also struggle with executive function. Executive function, I don't know if I can explain it very well. You guys can also look it up. Don't trust me, please. But it's like getting things done. Like you have a to-do list, and that can be so overwhelming for people with ADHD, like doing the dishes or doing laundry. For example, doing the laundry is hard because I think of it as 5 million steps instead of one task. And that's overwhelming for me. And it is for a lot of people that have the same diagnosis. So when you're in a world where everyone says these things are easy to do, right? It should be easy to make an appointment. It should be easy to check your emails and respond to people. Sometimes there are people that those things are not easy, and other things that might be easy to someone else is hard, or vice versa. So I was having a hard time being able to schedule my life and stay on top of things and do things that seemed normal to everyone else. I always felt like, why am I not normal? Like, why can't my brain just be normal? Like, why can't I just do things like normal people? Whatever normal means, that normal doesn't exist, but we in society and in culture have this stereotype of what is normal. And so I struggled with those things. And so the more I struggled, the more negative I was with myself and the more negative self-talk that I had on myself. I thought I was a failure. I thought I couldn't do anything right. I could never succeed. This, that, and the other. And so it was a spiral, and that's where my depression and anxiety came from. So that's why that diagnosis was super helpful for me personally. Now, why this relates to the podcast and Star Wars. Sorry. I promise it's important. After getting this diagnosis, I realized that I was capable of the things that I've wanted to do in my life. People have been trying to tell me that for a long time. But I didn't really have the tools or the processing power in my brain to be able to take my creative ideas and actually implement them. The implementing part is very hard for me and for a lot of people that have ADHD. So here I am now. I am implementing this. And guys, this seems silly, but this is the first thing creatively for myself that I have seen through from start to finish. I am a perfectionist by nature, and because of that, a lot of times when I've gotten overwhelmed about something, I've just stopped. That also makes it really hard to start over. Like if I've gone through a hard time and I practice yoga. If I haven't gone to yoga for a while, it's really hard for me to start back at square one because I measure myself up based off of my highest level that I've reached in something. And that's not fair. And that's something I'm working through. Again, I promise I'm getting back to Star Wars. This is a big deal for me. Recording this episode is a big deal for me. So, for any of you, even if just one person listens to this, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It means so much to me. This is healing my inner child, my inner teenager, so many things. Having people want to come on this show has been incredible. It's been humbling. It has been such an honor for some of you that have submitted your stories for me to read them and to hear them. So thank you for doing that. I like to be an open book and I wanted to be vulnerable on here so you could see that I'm not coming on here and asking you to be vulnerable with people that watch this and me not do it myself. Back to Star Wars. So I've gone on this journey through my life. Star Wars has always kind of been there in the background and in different places and has been very encouraging for me. Now the pandemic has happened, different things like that. I found the Clone Wars later in life as an adult, late to the party on that one. And I know some people are still late to the party, and let me tell you, I know it's an animated show, but it is incredible, guys. Like, if you struggle with the beginning of the animation or the movie or different things like that, push through it. I promise it's worth it. I have never cried so much in my life on an animated show than watching the Clone Wars. And it introduced me to one of my favorite Star Wars characters, and a lot of people's now, because she is now in the big screen, Ahsoka Tano. I love Ahsoka. I have her tattooed on me, guys. I love her. And Ahsoka Tano helped me get through so much during the pandemic. I worked in retail, which obviously wasn't really going on. So I was home a lot, and I got to watch a lot of Clone Wars, and I watched a lot of Clone Wars with my dogs, with Max and my Doberman, Zoe, who I still have. And I remember I would turn it on, and Max had such a personality. Like, I wish I could explain this dog to you, and I can't, but he would just like look at me like, really, really, Mom? Like, I remember even posting pictures on my social media of him being like, this again? Can it be something else, please? And I was like, no, sorry. This is like my comfort thing right now, and I want to watch it again. And so like when I would do things throughout my day or do tasks that were hard and I didn't want to do, because at this point I hadn't had my diagnosis yet for ADHD, I would put Clone Wars on. Even if I'd already watched it, I would watch it and it would help me get things done in the day. And then that continued into Rebels. Like I watched Rebels, and that became something super important to me. Again, incredible show, even though it's animated. I promise, guys, it's amazing. And those characters, Hera and Kanan, and just their perseverance through so many hard things, just really helped me get through that time too. And so, you know, and the sequels came out, and I told myself that I was not, as an adult, going to do to them what adults did to the prequels. I mean, yes, prequels. My mind is a little shot. I said, I don't care if I hate these movies, if I don't like them, if they bomb, or if people love them and I don't like them, or I like them and people don't like them. I'm not going to bash them like people did, because I remember being a kid and I remember loving the prequels, and I remember people telling me they were dumb movies. And who was I, this little girl, right? Like, being a woman in this fandom is hard. Like, I know some of y'all are like, boo-hoo, I'm over y'all saying that, but it is. I don't want it to be, and a lot of people don't, but it is hard for us. And so, I didn't say anything. I didn't argue with people. I didn't, speak my mind about them. And I just told myself, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that to the sequels. I'm not going to do it. Now, does that mean that I don't have things that I wish were different? No. Does that mean that there were things that I wish could have been changed or whatever? Sure. But I also want to go back to this podcast. This is not the podcast that we are going to have like movie critiques and we're going to get into bashing things or whatever. This is for us to share our stories. And so, we can talk about the movies that were inspiring to us and helped us and things like that, but we're not going to go on tangents about other things. I do enjoy the sequels. I enjoy all of the Star Wars movies. I'm one of those annoying people. Sorry. It is what it is. And I know people think that's a cop-out, but sorry, I can't change it. It's who I am. But getting back, see, it's ADHD, guys, and this is why maybe I should have had a list of what all I wanted to go over, but I did it, so here we are. I enjoyed those animated shows a lot, and I still love them, and they have given me so much joy and hope and different things like that, and Ahsoka was so helpful for me. And I'm going to backtrack just a little bit to when I was a kid, because I did not mention about Princess Leia. And Princess Leia, let me tell you, that character was life-changing for me as a little girl. Seeing a character on the screen that was my size, I am a small, petite woman, and seeing Carrie Fisher portray this Spitfire, confident, intelligent, beautiful, stylish, like also feminine woman, all of the things, because it seems like in life, it's like it has to be one or the other. It has to be a certain, like, you're either really smart or you don't like fashion or whatever. And it's like I wanted to be confident and independent and mature and intelligent, but I also liked style and I liked things like that. And if you don't, that's totally fine too. But for me, I did. And so finding a character that was similar to me, but also someone I could look up and emulate was life-changing for me as a little girl. Princess Leia was everything to me. I loved her. And then to get her mom, to get Natalie Portman playing Padme Amidala, who was also a petite, small, confident woman who had her flaws, who struggled with things, who had a lot of red flags and still fell in love. Those things happen in real life. And to see her was in my teenage years was also incredible. I memorized her speeches. I loved her. I still do. I have a Padme shirt. I don't know if y'all can see it, but I have a Padme shirt on. Sorry for those listening. I have a Padme shirt on right now because she's bravery, and I think sharing your story is brave. So I'm wearing her. I just think that these people are great. These characters are great, and they help a lot of people. Some of us connect to different people. I mean, a lot of male of the male audience, they connect to Luke, and I love Luke, but he wasn't my hero. Leia was, and he seemed to have like everything worked out for him, and things weren't like that for me, and Rey went through a lot too, but I also think a lot of things worked out for her, and that's, some people's story is that way. They go through a really hard time and then they go through a really good time where things work out. I'm not discounting how she grew up because that was awful, but like, there are different characters that speak to different people. And some people think that that makes it a bad character. And I don't think that. Just because, we have different reactions doesn't make us any less of a fan, because I love the characters that I love and I love the storylines that I love does not make me less of a fan than anyone else. I have a personal story. I have a life outside of seeing someone on the screen. Everyone does. And that's why some of us identify with different characters. And we'll get to why I want to do this podcast. Those are some of the reasons. I got to go to MegaCon this year. It was my first convention. And it was a big one, obviously. And I met some incredible people. And initially, I had thought about doing a Star Wars podcast about books because I wanted to do a podcast. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do it on. I wanted to keep it maybe more specific because that would be easier for me personally with how my brain works to focus on. And I used to read a lot as a kid, and I wanted to get into the practice of reading more. And I enjoy reading. It's like anything else, you have to make time for it. And so I wanted to get into that habit again. And I thought, if I do a podcast, it will force me to remember and keep myself accountable to read the incredible Star Wars novels. But I kept dragging my feet, and I don't know, like it just, I think there was something missing. Not that the books aren't wonderful, and that's not something we can talk about, because I'm sure the books are also a huge inspiration in the comics to people. But I kept thinking about it, and I was hearing these people's stories because I talk to pretty much anybody when I'm waiting in line and different things like that. I love making new friends. That's just who I am. I've kind of always been that way. And so I was talking to people while I was waiting in line and for different things. And I loved hearing these people's different stories, like how they got to go to celebrations, or if they were cosplayers, like what got them into that, what they were excited about at the convention, who they were going to meet, the different celebrities, and artists and different things. And I loved hearing that. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, Jessica, what are you doing? Like, let's do this. So here I am. And so that is what I want people to be able to do. I want people to be able to come on here and share their story, probably more organized than me because that's just who I am, a little scatterbrained. And why that connects to Star Wars, why that got them into whatever their hobby is, or what they love, or how that spoke to them through a hard time or a good time, because there's a lot of joy, also in Star Wars, and it brings people a lot of joy. And so through all these things in my life led me here. And I think that's important. And I think that's important for people to be able to tell. I don't think if my dog hadn't have passed away last year that I would be doing this, because he was getting older, and I didn't realize it until after he passed away that I was limiting a lot of things that I was doing because I wanted to spend every moment possible with him. And not that that was a bad thing, and I don't regret that. But I don't know, I feel like I believe that we all have our time. Something I believe. Not everyone believes that. And I believe that was his time. And I believe whatever his little doggy life was supposed to accomplish was accomplished. I don't know if that was me getting to a better place, but he accomplished it. I'm in a much better place. And a lot of that is thanks to a dog, which seems, again, crazy to some people. And then if you get it, you just get it. And so his legacy will kind of live through this. And I love that. That's amazing to me. I want to have the hope and the joy and the unconditional love that he had for people. in life. I also want to do that because I've seen that in Star Wars. I've seen how friends can become chosen family, how people can be adopted into families, and you can find some of your most lifelong friends in these type of spaces, which is crazy. What kind of a world do we live in? That's so cool. Like, normally people say that and it's like really negative. Like, what kind of world do we live in? And they'll go off on some tangent. But think of it as a good thing. Like, how crazy is it that we can come to the internet? I remember a time when that did not exist. And I remember a time when it was like the dial-up sound, awful, to get on like AOL instant messaging, and you would try to like talk to people and, your friends, and you're like, oh my gosh, like you'd be waiting for your crush to get on, and all the excitement of, can I say hi? Will they say hi back? All those things. But anyway, the internet has progressed so much. There's a lot of negative, but there's also a lot of good. We can find friends online, guys. Crazy, right? Like that we can make friends online about a shared interest. And then we can go to these conventions and different things, and we can meet these people in person. And like, y'all, that's so cool. Like, that is really so cool that we can find the people, like our people. We can find them and we can, like, that's great. But with that being said, with this podcast, I don't want this to just be like-minded people. I want this to be a place where everyone, yes, everyone can come and share their Star Wars story. This is not a political podcast. Yes, I know that Star Wars is political and there are political themes in Star Wars. I know that that will naturally come up in conversation, but this is not going to be a place where we get on our soapbox about any political topic that is in the real world right now going on. It's just not. Now, again, naturally, some themes and some stuff might be discussed, and that is just the natural, unedited flow of things. And that is totally fine. But this is not a place that people are going to come on to just yell at you about whatever their opinion is on a policy or a person or whatever. This is not the place for that. And this is also, I want this to be a safe place for people who have experienced religious trauma. I will have people who faith or spirituality or religion will be a part of their story. It is a part of mine. But that does not mean that any of us are going to get on here and we're going to try to convince you to believe something we believe. That's not what this is for either. This is a Star Wars podcast. There are spiritual elements, obviously, in the stories of Star Wars. Like, that is also a theme. Spirituality is also a theme in Star Wars. So you can't really just completely avoid that. And I don't want people to not be able to share their story. But I also want it to be respectful of the fact that there are some people that they have gone through hard things. That's why I might have a trigger warning at the beginning of some of them saying, hey, these are some things that are going to be talked about. If it's not for you, or this is going to offend you, or whatever, like, that's totally fine. Maybe don't watch this episode or listen to this episode, listen to the next one. I want this to be a place that people can come on, anyone can come on and share what they have gone through and how Star Wars has helped them. It can be as easy as like me talking about, this is how I got into it and this is what I do now. It doesn't have to be this deep. It doesn't have to be, your whole life story just put out there. You don't have to do that. Not all the guests are going to do that. Some of them might and some of them might not. So it's going to be kind of a collective of different stories. I want to have people from different walks of life. I want to have people with different spiritual experiences and backgrounds, different faith backgrounds. I want this to be a place where people of different races and ethnicities can come on and share their story. I want this to be a place where people on different places of, yes, the political spectrum can come on and share their story, because this is a very divided time. The fandom is very divided. I don't know how else we can help that except to share how Star Wars has helped us, that we are human beings. Okay? I don't know if everyone believes in souls. I do. We all have a soul, right? I believe that. You might not. That's okay. I believe we are all human beings with a soul, that we're, a part of the divine. That's something I believe too. I believe in God. And I believe that we are all humans and we need to respect each other. And it's okay, again, to disagree. It is okay to not see eye to eye with everyone. But where did the time go that people that were different could sit down and have a darn good conversation with each other? I miss those times. Let's bring it back. Let's do it. Let's come here. Let's talk about Star Wars. Let's be respectful of each other. Let's share our stories. Let's get to know one another on a different level. Let's cross some lines here. Let's heal maybe a little bit. Who knows? I don't know. This might flop. People might hate this. This might be an absolutely horrible idea. I don't know, but I'm trying it, and I think that's a good thing. I think that the best way that we can help each other not be so divided is by breaking down some barriers. And if a Star Wars podcast by a girl in Arkansas can help do that, great. If it doesn't, okay, maybe we try something else. But I genuinely am so excited for this journey. I'm really excited to share the guests with you that have already said that they want to come on. I'm excited to continue to share my story because there's a lot more to it. I didn't get into, this episode helped me feel this in this show, or this movie is the most impactful one for me, or, different things like that, because I also don't want this to be super long. I know we all have lives outside of this, and I don't expect people to spend a ton of time paying attention to this. So I'm going to try to keep these around 45 minutes to an hour. If someone's story needs to be longer than that, then we might break it up into several different episodes. I'm going to go over, some questions real quick that I are asking some of the guests. I want to answer those too for you guys. What is the best lesson you have learned from Star Wars? I have learned that hope is always there. It might be a glimmer. It might be a little teeny tiny flame. It might be barely still alive, but it's there if you look and if you try to find it. It's there. And sometimes by helping other people, like Ahsoka said and did, we can help fan that flame of hope, and we can help spread it to other parts of our lives. And that in turn maybe will help someone else see the hope, and they might continue to spread that hope to someone else. And even in our darkest times, that hope is still there. So that's important. That's probably the best lesson that I've learned in Star Wars. What character has inspired me the most? I've talked about Ahsoka and Leia and Padme. I think, I've kind of gone over those, so I don't want to beat a dead horse. That's a horrible turn of phrase. Where did that even come from? I don't even know why I said that. Anyway, I don't want to just keep talking about those. Those are some of the characters that have really inspired me the most. I also I'm a huge Anakin Skywalker fan. Um, I love in Star Wars, anyone can be redeemed, right? That's incredible. Like, that doesn't happen in the real world. That type of like, I don't know, like people, yes, there would be probably consequences of different things, but like for someone to just be fully welcomed back into the light, like that's just not something that like logically happens in real life. So it's nice to see it in fantasy on TV, what we could hope could happen for someone, right? But to see someone like that, like so talented and good, but so conflicted, and then turn so dark and then come back, like that's an incredible story and like character arc, right? Like Anakin, also one of my favorite characters. And I used to get a lot of flack for that. And then now there's other people that are speaking out and they're like, oh no, we like Anakin too. I'm like, yes. And at MegaCon, I got to meet Hayden and guys, this 34-year-old girl, like, oh my gosh, he's like the nicest person. And I hope I can meet him again. Like, it was a really good experience. Anyway, how do I think Star Wars stories can help make the world a better place? Well, again, hope, right? And redemption. No, I really think that if we really listen to the lessons that these stories have, we can personally change. I love the psychology that's in Star Wars too, and how like Lucas was definitely very influenced by Carl Jung. If you don't know who Carl Jung is, he helped kind of develop a lot of the archetypes that you see in different things, like your ego, your shadow self, which is like your dark side. And I think maybe Lucas, I'm speculating, I don't know for sure. It's never, I don't know if it's been confirmed. If it is, send it to me because I'd love to read this kind of stuff. But your shadow side or shadow self is definitely, I feel like, with the dark side is an allegory. I think that would be the right term for. And you see that with Luke going into the cave in Dagobah. You see it with Rey, falling down and my mind is blanking. It's late here. I'm recording this really late at night, so please forgive me. But the island she was on, with Luke, you see it there. You see it with a lot of things that Anakin faces and different people throughout Star Wars face. And I do truly believe that we have to look at the dark sides of ourselves in order to fully embrace our light. I think we have to go through that. I think we have to look through that and really do the work internally, to become the people we can be. And so I think that if these stories, how they can help change the world is for people to take them personally and to analyze yourself personally. And how am I being like the character that I admire? How am I not being like the character that I admire? Am I, this, that, or the other? If you really look at that and you really, really think about how can I grow as a person, I think that sparks a fire, like I said earlier, of helping someone else around you become a better person, right? I think that when we surround ourselves with people who are trying to be better people, that helps us want to be better people, right? And so I think that can turn into something bigger where you have these people that are being honest with themselves about their darkness or what they struggle with, and they're wanting to achieve being a better person. That can kind of help other people want to do the same thing, because you end up being kinder to people. You end up just wanting to be a positive difference in the world, and that has a ripple effect. It really does. And so I think that is something that definitely the Star Wars stories can help make the world a better place. What positive impact do I hope that my Star Wars story can have for others? You're not alone. we're all out here just trying to do the best that we can, and we're all people behind these screens. And we're human. We're going to make mistakes. We aren't going to say the right thing. We're going to change, hopefully, some negative beliefs or bad opinions we might have of people. That can change. We can change, and we can become better people. We can be more light side instead of dark side. Like, we cannot let anger and hate fuel us, and fear. We can instead not just be bound by those emotions. We can be better people, and I hope that seeing that I'm just a real person, I'm not anything special, and I've gone through some stuff with my mental health and with different things like that, and I'm choosing to still have hope. I am choosing to still keep going, and that doesn't mean that I haven't been in a completely different place than that. Listen, I have. But if anybody is not going to judge you and is not going to give you a hard time for where you are and say, hey, come on, let's, I'm going to help pick you up, like, we can get through this. I get that. And I can be here, as much as I can for people. And that's something that I've always tried to do. And so I hope that my story will help with people who are maybe having a hard time with different things like that. And so why am I doing this podcast? I've kind of answered that a little bit already. I want to share stories of fans, and I want to maybe use that to help with the divide that we have in the fandom. And I really hope that we can learn that we can be friends with people that are different, And it's like, who are you going to emulate? Are you going to emulate the Sith? Or are you going to emulate the Jedi? Like, I mean, the Jedi had their problems too, but you get what I'm saying. Like, we can choose to go down a dark path, or we can choose to try to go down a better path. And so I hope that we can come together and we can do that. What is our shared humanity here? It's Star Wars. And I think there's more to it than that. I really do. And I think we can learn more about each other through this fandom, and that excites me. So thank you guys for listening to me ramble about this. If you have any more questions, let me know. I'm sure that I will share more about my Star Wars journey as this continues. This was just a little bit. Again, I didn't want this to be too long. I hope that this kind of helps people see what I want this podcast to be. When people come on or want to come on, that, it's going to look a little different every week. I hope that you enjoyed this. I have no idea what this is. I'm just kind of putting this out into the universe and seeing what happens. I hope you guys take care of yourself, and I will put links or information or different things below. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming on. I look forward to having my first guest on this week. Later this week, I will be recording with our first guest, and that will be out next week. I'm planning on having the audio version of the podcast out on Tuesday mornings, and then the YouTube video on Fridays. That is my goal. Probably will not happen every week, but that is the goal, and that's what I'm hoping for. If something is different, I will let people know. And if there's any changes, I will let people know. Now, it does not mean if you want to come on here, I've already told people we do not have to do a video recording. I'm still figuring out kind of what that will look like, as far as if I'll still do something on the YouTube for that, or if that will be like a bonus audio episode that will be put on through just like the podcast audio. Still working through some things. So again, please give me grace as I am learning to navigate this world. This is a new space for me. I have guested. I have been a guest on some podcasts before, but I have not done that. I haven't hosted it for myself. So anyway, I really hope that you guys have a great rest of your day, wherever you are in the day, wherever you are in the world. And thanks for joining us here on Tales of the Force. Trying to think if I have anything else to add to this. Sorry, I'm looking through my notes to make sure. I don't think so. If you have any questions, you can email me at talesoftheforcepod at gmail.com. Also, please follow the different accounts I am on with this on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and YouTube. And that's it for today. This is the first episode. Thank you for being here. It's truly an honor to get to share this with you guys.